Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Rule 34 podcast. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my guest.
I'm Mr. Solis.
Yes, we're back. We have an opinion on it because, as you mentioned last episode when we were closing out, I messed it up a bit.
Right. Your Rule 34 podcast, where if something exists,
we'll see
let's
you in
put
the
that
next...
in, Jack.
It's supposed to be we have an opinion on it, but last episode I messed up and said we'll see you in the next episode because we were rushing a bit to close out.
Yeah, we had an awful lot to say, and we jam-packed it into 2 episodes.
Yeah.
And Jack, we got 2 more nights and about 5 or 6 more hours of action to unpack.
Yeah, but before we get into that, as I mentioned with Mr. Solis earlier, or before we started recording, I told him that there was a spoiler for tonight's NXT as they moved to Tuesday for him, because seemingly it's been a trend on this podcast when we're talking wrestling that, like, we always mention this, and I'm pretty sure we mentioned it yesterday on night 1, but Santos Escobar issued an open challenge for his cruiserweight title. Kushida came out and answered the challenge, and he won.
Wow.
It was just yesterday that we were saying Kushida, we would hope sometime down the line he would get some gold, and I didn't think it would come this soon, but he beat Escobar for the cruiserweight title.
Leaping Lizards, he was the unified cruiserweight champion for all of about 4 days.
So I had to talk to you about it because I was like...
It sounds like, that's so funny. I'm looking forward to the match. But it sounds like the NXT after WrestleMania is a lot more exciting than the Raw after WrestleMania, which also took place last night.
Yeah, I saw so many people just saying that Raw was terrible. It's whenever I see stuff like that, I just let it go. Man, I'm sure glad for the most part I don't keep up weekly with the.
You would just be disappointed, like a lot. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, sitting there 3 hours.
At some point, you gotta say, "I'm done."
Yeah.
But before we get to that, we got a couple of nights where even before it started, you looked at that card, those 2 cards, and go, you know what? There's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, and I think the common theme with both nights of WrestleMania was, aside from maybe 1 or 2 matches, it seemed like everyone was banking on the matches themselves to carry the hype, because for the most part there wasn't much build up to a lot of these matches, or when there was build up, it wasn't as great, I guess you can say.
Yeah, I guess I know what you mean. Like, there wasn't anything extra, or there wasn't a lot of big surprises. No, we were looking forward to the matches themselves.
Yeah. And so we kick off with night 1 of WrestleMania starting right at 5 o'clock. Oh, wait. Gotta discuss it first. There was a delay because of the weather in Florida. And although it sucked, I think the best thing to come out of it was a lot of those impromptu promos that they did.
What a wild 40 minutes, you know? I was talking to a couple of my teachers about it, and one of them, who doesn't follow wrestling, says, wait, it was outside? What are they doing outside? Why did I picture it being inside? Yes, because 363 days a year, it is inside.
Yeah. It's only it's only for WrestleMania, really, that they will do like an outdoor type arena.
So they did interview a lot of wrestlers waiting for the rain to subside. Did you have a favorite interview?
I think definitely Drew's, because, like, you know, because it was like, because as we all know, you know, last year was all about Drew getting his big time moment after 10 plus years of working towards that world title, getting that moment in front of fans, and he hasn't had it. So, like, that was the thing I really loved, like I mentioned about the impromptu promos, was that because, like, they couldn't like script them right away. They just let the talent talk, and you saw a lot of emotion and passion in these promos, specifically with Drew's, you know, to the point where, as we'll see, something similar happened later in this night. You know, he got very emotional trying just to talk, you know, because that's how much this moment of the first show back in front of fans for a year meant to him.
I agree. One line that, like, you know, because there was a while where that interview was going on, and they hadn't yet told at least me, the Peacock viewer, that the reign was happening. Drew McIntyre was being held back by Kayla, Braxton, or maybe a referee or two, trying to get at Bobby Lashley, get up in his face, and he says, "Mother Nature can't save you from the beating you're going to get." And I thought that was a really cool line.
Yeah. And before we get into the match itself, I was really glad that, you know, they gave him the first match because it made sense, you know, who better to be the first person out in front of the crowd than Drew. But then, this is just being nitpicky. I felt like they kind of ruined that whole thing because then they had Titus and Hogan come out with, like, their entrance music and stuff. And I get it, you need to introduce the show with your host, but it was like, it kind of took away a bit from Drew getting that first entrance, but at least, you know, he was the first wrestler to get his entrance in front of it compared to them just being the hosts.
I agree. Really underwhelming when the first entrance music you hear is Titus O'Neil, bless his heart. He's going to do his best. Hulk Hogan, I think it's weird, actually, still that people are excited to see or hear Hulk Hogan in 2021.
Yeah, I was very surprised.
I think it makes more sense in night 2 when they appear, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Yeah. But, you know, these guys just come out and awkwardly talk to one another. Mm-hmm. I wish after 40 minutes of rain, I wish the very first thing people heard was, "The match will go on as scheduled," and then it's Drew's really heavy music.
Yeah.
And I wish they had him out there when it was raining. I thought that would have been incredible too.
Yeah, that would have been amazing. At least, like, especially Drew's entrance and like his whole character would have made sense with the rain. But, you know, safety as always. And so the match itself, what did you think about it?
I liked it. You know, it was a hard-hitting affair. Both guys look strong. You know, MVP doing what he does best, making his presence felt from the outside. And, you know, it was neat to see throughout the match, the story was, "I'll put this hurt lock on you." And he couldn't do it. Every time he did, though, he got a little bit closer. Yeah. Every time he tried, his hands got a little bit closer together.
Yeah, and I guess because of the story that they were trying to tell, and being the finish most likely was going to be involving the hurt lock, I felt it was much different than their Backlash match from last year, which I thought was very refreshing, you know, to have a different type of match going into it.
It's true, and you know, it was gonna. I completely forgot that match happened, but it's gonna actually always be a different match because the dynamics are different. Yeah. Bobby Lashley is walking in with the belt, and I'll tell you what, you know those augmented reality graphics WWE like to use? I don't know if it's used any better than Bobby Lashley's lightning.
Yeah.
It looks real good.
Yeah, and, you know, because a lot of people went into this match thinking that Drew was just going to, like, automatically win because, you know, get his moment in front of the fans.
Yep.
I was expecting the final, like, at least the finish of the match to be that Lashley puts in the hurt lock. And much like when Lashley originally had broken out of it against Chris Masters back then, I thought Drew was going to do something similar. But it was really cool to see, like, that, you know, they went with the somewhat unpredictable route and stayed with Lashley as champion, you know, give him longer time with that belt.
Yeah, you definitely, like, you know, we're only a couple of months removed from when Drew won it a second time in front of fans, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
In the Thunderdome. You definitely got the sense that, yeah, this is a company that would fabricate it so that he won it again in a different, more ideal setting.
Yeah.
Can you imagine each time being a little more engaged with the audience? No people, digital people, some people.
Yeah.
But no, my opinion of the match increased at the revelation that the almighty Bobby Lashley would retain his WWE Championship by submission.
Yeah, and I'm really glad that they did it because much like Drew's story last year, it was the story of Lashley waiting all these years to become champion, and he finally essentially completed himself along with working with MVP to get to that level where they were working with him, and now they're showing that they want to give him a longer reign than just, being a transitional champion.
And so now you think that the next move is to rebuild the Hurt Business by adding some of WWE's brightest upstarts to the stable. Who would you take to be, with the most potential, the greatest character, and put them side by side with Bobby Lashley?
Damian Priest.
Oh no, he wishes. I'm teasing you, Jack, of course. I'm alluding to who actually comes to his aid at the end of Raw last night.
And the biggest surprise to me is, why are they still in their gimmicks and masks and stuff if they supposedly left Ali?
Oh no, T-Bar and Mace of the broken up Retribution.
It confused me why they're still in their gear like that. But then at WrestleMania, when they had all the wrestlers on the stage, we forgot to mention that when Vince McMahon opened it up, you could see in the back, Mia Yim was in her normal gear like from NXT. So I was like, I get they split them up, so why can't we get Dijakovic back to his normal gear and stuff like that?
Unconfirmed whether Dijakovic was out there, in his true form or in his Retribution form.
But, I'm really excited for Lashley to retain. And I think the route they should go with Drew here, I know they're already having Drew try and challenge him again, but I think you have Lashley retain, and you kind of do similar to what, like, you see, like, a lot of, like, the biggest stars when it comes to, like, these big companies. You let them have, like, other side feuds while still, like, saying, like, they're using those feuds to, like, still build themselves towards, like, chasing the main title while not actually challenging for the main title.
Are you saying that Bobby Lashley should be preoccupied with side dudes, or should Drew be occupied with side dudes?
Drew. So,
okay, sure, yeah, I get you. So, he's got to get through a few mini bosses before he gets to the big boss again.
Yeah, and that way, you continue to build up this, like, story of Drew trying to recapture it, so that finally, like, maybe when you have a full crowd, like usual Manias, that's maybe when you can give him his crowning moment in front of the fans. Whether it is either a main title or even, like, I've seen a lot of people say maybe he should chase a mid-card title just for now, just so that we can extend Lashley's reign.
I say travel restrictions will start to be rescinded, right? And vaccinations is going to be on the increase. Where's Brock Lesnar hiding, right? Let's say that everything's safe to go, and Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley for the title? Goodness gracious. Shut up and take my money.
When you said restrictions were easing, I don't know why the first thing I thought you were going to say was Walter versus Drew.
I think Brock is hiding up in some cabin in Canada. Yeah. We're going to need some some foreign diplomacy to get him back.
Yeah. But, so, the next match was the Tag Team Turmoil match.
Yeah.
This was between the Riot Squad, Natalya and Tamina, Carmella and Billie Kay, Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, and Naomi and Lana, as to who would challenge the women's tag champions Nia Jax and Baszler on night 2.
Correct. Isn't it funny, Jack, that of the 4 teams' names that you just named, only one of them had a team name, and the rest were the 2 women who tag teamed together.
Yeah. I mean,
so I was going for the Riot Squad.
Same. I wanted the Riot Squad to win. I feel like they've been due, especially because they're one of the only real, like, tag teams left that, like sure, like, when they when they debuted, they were randomly paired together, much like a lot of these other ones. But then, like, they're, like, I think commentary mentioned it, that they're the women's tag team that has, like, the most time, like, existing almost.
Agreed. you did have, so the first, it's sort of a gauntlet kind of thing.
Yeah.
The first two teams to fight were Naomi and Lana, who have created a certain team dynamic as the dancers, you know? They dance, they got the glow gimmicks, and they took on Carmella and Billie Kay, who is a formidable tag team wrestler.
Yeah. And we see that because, like, right away, not even, like, much time into the match, they eliminate Lana and Naomi.
Yes, they do.
And that kind of set the pace that this was going to be very fast-paced and quick for the most part.
Yep.
Because then, I believe the Riot Squad come in next, and, they get a back and forth, but then they quickly get Carmella and Billie Kay eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Then we see Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke come down. Mandy slips on the ramp. Had to bring that up.
You had to.
And then you also have to bring this up. They go back and forth with being whole fast-paced thing. The Riot Squad eliminate them, and then the announcer messes it up and says the Riot Squad were eliminated.
What the? Yeah, I mean, it wasn't very unclear. Just a drop in the bucket of technical issues that this WrestleMania faced.
Yeah. And then finally, Natalya and Tamina come out. And this was kind of, I guess, the longer part of it, where they let these two teams kind of go at it for a bit until finally Natalya and Tamina pick up the win.
I never felt so out of touch for not watching SmackDown regularly than when the crowd were chanting Tamina. I had no idea she had so much crowd support.
Yeah, and as we'll see in night 2 later on too, like, I was surprised by how much crowd support she had. I didn't really think about that too much until they finally, when they were in front of a crowd, they were getting support. Which is funny because they've kind of, even though like they're like playing the whole role of vets who like think they deserve more, like they're kind of playing more of a heel role than anything. So it was surprising to see them get cheered.
Yeah, but the veterans, right? While Riot Squad are really a veteran tag team, these two wrestlers, Natalya and Tamina, they've just been at it for longer. Mm-hmm. They played up on commentary that they're both second generation wrestlers, and we saw them pick up the win when Tamina used her father, his big splash.
Yeah.
Jimmy Snuka.
Yeah.
The Superfly splash.
Yeah, so they move on to night 2 to challenge Baszler and Jax. And
hey, Jack, did you know that nobody's meaner than Tamina?
I didn't know that until that night. But then we get the next match, which is Cesaro versus Seth Rollins. And as you had mentioned it, I believe at Fastlane, when we reviewed Fastlane, Cesaro is very much in the same position that Kevin Owens was last year WrestleMania time in his feud with Rollins. So, what did you think?
In the sense that this is it's a high profile match for him. Even though there's no title on the line, third match on the card, this is a huge deal. They really played it up in the package too. That for 10 WrestleManias, he's never been given a one-on-one shot. Except for Drew Gulak in the pre-show last year.
Yeah.
I think it's at this stage I should bring up that I was watching night 1 with my dad, and he watched the package, right? He's taking it all in, and when Cesaro starts uppercutting Seth Rollins, when he starts, he starts striking Seth Rollins, my dad kind of turns to me and goes, and he's never had a singles match?
I know, it's crazy to think just how much, they haven't really done with Cesaro in terms of a lot of this stuff.
Dad doesn't watch wrestling a lot, and so he watched about 3 minutes of this guy and thought, well, why not? Yeah, WWE, why not?
Yeah, it was an amazing match, and Cesaro just really got the shine of a lifetime out there.
Sure did. Seth Rollins was on fire, pun intended. He had a third new music, entrance music, which was frustrating.
Yeah, I noticed that. I was like, that's not his usual theme. I guess we're trying to do like a mixture now of the two.
Yeah, it was really gross. But, not to take away from the action, but we didn't say it. My dad really enjoyed Seth Rollins' interview during the Reign. When he comes out and calls... who is he? Oh, this new guy. I don't know his name. He's a backstage interviewer, and he kept calling him Mike. His name wasn't Mike.
I do have to say, one of my favorite spots from this match was when Rollins went for the stomp and Cesaro just transitioned it into the uppercut.
It feels so good.
Yeah, I love that spot. Glad to see Cesaro get a win, and I'm hoping, similar to KO, this leads to putting him essentially back into the main event scene.
Agreed. Cesaro definitively, clean as a whistle, pinned a former Universal Champion, WWE Champion. This is a company where that means something sometimes.
Yeah. So I'm hoping they go through with it. And like you said, maybe sometime later this year we'll see him like how KO was late in the year last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, unsuccessfully challenging for the top prize 6 consecutive times.
Well, my hope is that at least one of those times Cesaro will be successful in capturing gold.
Which Cesaro movie is your favorite? The swing, the traditional swing, where for folks at home, he grabs a guy's legs and spins himself around. Or do you prefer the UFO, when the guy's on his shoulders and he spins himself around?
Honestly, I always looked at the swing and I was like, man, it's just, like, that just shows off his insane strength and stuff when doing that. But when he did that on that night, I was like, this man is not human. How is he doing this? Like, how does he have this level of coordination, balance?
Yes.
All this.
He's got a grown man on his shoulders and he's spinning around. He did it to Drew Gulak in the pre-show we all forgot too.
Yeah, Cesaro's just simply like amazing. Like he's literally like if you made a wrestler like in a video game almost.
And you turned up all the stats real high.
Yeah. Speaking of turning stats up real high, we move on to our next match where someone's, if you were creating a character, this man's height was probably turned all the way up to its maximum.
It was a glitch when they made Omos.
Yeah, you have AJ Styles teaming with his giant Omos versus the New Day for the Raw Tag titles.
Right.
Now, I really enjoyed the basically like the story they kind of told here, because typical like with the New Day, like yes they like to do or they focus on the wrestling movie, but they focus on the sports entertainment side with this match where they were building up this whole thing of almost getting in the ring.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? We are about 4 matches in, and 3 of the 4 matches, actually, Jack, were building up to something we were all waiting for. We were all waiting for the Hurt Lock, right? Mm-hmm. We were waiting for the swing, and we kept teasing it. And then this match we keep teasing Omos's involvement, him getting tagged in. Yeah. Dad didn't have a lot to say about what was going on, but here, he couldn't not talk about how big that guy was. He thought, this guy must be a wrestling fan since he was a kid. I go, I don't know, Dad. I feel like they just found him.
Yeah. And, I think the part I loved the most was, like, the New Day, because just like the Riot Squad, they're tag team veterans. They were, like, trying to talk down to AJ saying, you're not a tag team guy, you can't beat us because you're not a tag team guy.
Right.
And just all the comedy that went into it and all the build up to Omos getting tagged in.
Yep, and then feel like the roles were reversed. The baby faces were being real heelish, keeping AJ from his corner, double teaming him and quick tags. It was a weird dynamic.
Yeah, but then finally he does get tagged in, and
he got such a big reaction.
Yeah, and Xavier Woods is like just facial reaction when when he finally like gets into the ring, and Kofi's reaction as well was just so good.
That was real good.
And the spot we have to mention is AJ hitting a phenomenal forearms off of his shoulders.
Yes.
That was so great. And so a match basically all about getting Omos over with the crowd. Very successful, and you get new Raw Tag Champs with AJ and Omos, and AJ's now a Grand Slam champion because he finally won a tag title.
Yep, he's very slowly done it all in this company.
Yeah, crazy to think. Ever since 2016 when he came in.
Yeah. Goodness gracious.
Now, as I mentioned when I discussed about WrestleMania, there was a lot of matches that either had like little to no build, or not like as interesting builds. One of those was Braun versus Shane, building up that storyline. It like to me, it was a literal like elementary school type storyline that they had built between the two men.
And what's weird, Jack, it's like because Shane McMahon has not been a weekly presence on TV, it felt like he just showed up to pick on Braun. It was like, I didn't come back to be a general manager, didn't come back to like be a full-time wrestler. It seemed like it's just WrestleMania season, Jack. He's like, nope, it's that time of the year when surely somebody's going to fight me, right? A 51-year-old, millionaire.
Yeah, and the big thing to me that I was telling my dad, I was like, are we really supposed to look at Braun Strowman, former Universal, IC, Tag, Money in the Bank winner, all this stuff, and really think that he's getting bullied by Shane McMahon, 50-something-year-old Shane McMahon?
I mean, it must affect you if the son of your employer has those rude things to say about you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like it's not just anybody. It's a guy who, for all intents and purposes, you work for.
Yeah.
So, but we're not. He's not. It's not being done in a clever way. It's not being done in an interesting way. This 51-year-old just came out and said, "You're stupid." And you're like, what?
Yeah. Despite the build, though, I think this match was at least somewhat type of like fun.
It was.
Because it was a steel cage match. You usually expect a lot of fun when it comes to steel cage matches.
Again, I have to bring up my dad, who. So we're gonna jump around, but Shane McMahon is on the outside of the cage. It looks like he's going to successfully climb out, and Braun rips the cage open like a can of soda, rips the steel off the cage, like the chain link, and pulls Shane back in through the side. And my dad could not believe that sight. He was like, wow.
Yeah. And even more of a wow was seeing Shane take that bump at the end at his age.
Both men standing on the top of this cage, and Braun throws him to the floor. Not the floor where he would have won. He threw him to the mat.
Yeah. And when I saw that they had like the two platforms set up at the top, I was afraid for a second. I was like, is he gonna is he gonna do the running power slam?
He was gonna power slam him too.
I was so scared. I was like, are they gonna really have him power slam 50-year-old Shane from that high, that far? And then I just saw him throw. I was like, well, then again, it wouldn't have been much different had Braun just picked him up and fell with him, because it was the same thing, just getting thrown off the top.
Get this, Jack. Tell me what you think about this, because Shane McMahon was flanked by Elias and Jackson Riker, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the only way you think Shane stands a chance. At the beginning of the match, Elias and Jackson Riker jump Braun before he even gets into the cage. I submit for your consideration the following. If you think back, Jack, what other wrestlers have supported Shane McMahon in his villainy as his henchman?
Drew?
Yep.
I think Ziggler.
Yep.
Lashley.
Yeah.
Corbin?
Stop there, Jack. Get this. You think back to the Shane henchmen? 2 of them are WWE champions in like a year's time. Are we saying, Jack, that Elias and Jackson Riker are future WWE champions aligning themselves with Shane McMahon?
Oh, I hope not.
Drew was in that role.
Oof.
There you go. I hope you can sleep tonight.
But the next match.
Yes. We're moving right along. It's a very easy watch. Night 1.
The Miz and John Morrison versus Damian Priest and Bad Bunny.
I have said my shared choice words about Damian Priest on this show with you, Jack, and I appreciate the forum. Here's why Damian Priest didn't upset me here in the role that he was in. He's in a tag match. You know what I mean? He's definitely not the spotlight. I heard he was hurt, so that maybe have reduced his amount of physical involvement.
Mm-hmm.
So it really allowed me to look at him for who he is, and that's a young and up-and-coming wrestler with a really big opportunity here. You know, rubbing elbows with former WWE champion, former Intercontinental champion, and whatever you'd call Bad Bunny.
Yeah, and I'm going to be completely honest here. I was watching it as we were going, and I don't know at what point it was, but I actually fell asleep a bit.
Wow!
But I woke up, and as soon as I woke up straight into Bad Bunny delivering a Canadian destroyer to John Morrison.
It's incredible. Like, the WWE really need to calm down with this, right? Because they make the celebrities look too good. You know?
Yeah.
He got the Pat McAfee treatment times 1,000. And I hear, you know, and one thing that he does better than Pat McAfee, here's why I would put Bad Bunny a higher tier than Pat McAfee, is all that work he's been doing on Raw.
Yeah.
Where Pat McAfee would just be on his podcast, you know, shouting from a safe distance.
Yeah.
Bad Bunny
It all started
really
with Stephen
carried-
Amell, though.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that'd be fun, Jack. One day we'll do celebrities involved in wrestling tier list.
Yeah. And
I just,
the one thing I'll mention here that like a lot of people were surprised by this match, you know, and they were giving props. And like the one area that I wanted to give props to was that we know as fans in the past, as you mentioned, what it's like a lot when a celebrity shows up. They always get the better of the established stars, you know. They let them get in, as you mentioned, like so much like offense and stuff when like it doesn't seem that realistic. But with Bad Bunny, at least they like made it semi-realistic because they stated the fact that he's been working on Raw. They've told that he's been working at the PC every day, you know. So like my props there is that he didn't just come in and like just have them do all the work for him. He came in and like put in the work to like he was willing to work with the people and put in the work so that they can do this instead of just simply like saying, oh, okay, I'm here, let's do this at like here, and like I'll be here to do this and this, but I won't like train for the match or really like how we've seen with a bunch of celebrities in the past.
My dad wondered whether WWE flipped a bill for the big rig that he came in on, or whether that's his own big rig.
Yeah, interesting to know. I have to assume it might be his own because during night 2 they showed like a commercial or an ad that showed like he was going to be going on tour and he had that exact rig.
Just what I know about WWE, right? Like, I would not expect that. I would not be surprised if they told him, hey, do you think you can flip the bill on that big rig? We're kind of tight for cash. You're going to let some people go in a couple of weeks because they're blankety blanks, Jack.
Yeah, but, still pretty good match, got the crowd going. Much like almost every match on this card, you know, they got like the crowd really going and really excited for this Mania.
CBS Sports gave this match an A and put it over the Braun Shane Steel Cage match, put it over the tag team match, put it over Cesaro and Seth Rollins only got an A minus. According to their rating, it's the best match of the night. But we got one more to go.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, the crowd was excited throughout the night, but the one thing I was glad, and again, as we mentioned, because of shortening the Manias like times, you don't have dead crowds by the end of it, so despite being all happy and cheering everything out throughout the night, they were still ready to go and cheer their hardest for the main event.
And I noticed it too. I noticed it in the main event, how excited they were for both women who were fighting for the SmackDown Women's Championship. We're talking Sasha Banks defending her title against Bianca Belair, the winner of the 2021 Women's Royal Rumble.
Yeah, and very monumental, very emotional for both. You know, as we saw Bianca, similar to, like I said, with Drew at the beginning of the show, getting very emotional at the beginning of the match.
Yeah, I was really excited for, Bianca especially, and it was so, fun and heartbreaking and heartwarming to see her almost start crying at the start of the match.
Yeah, I just really enjoyed it. It showed the emotions this match, and, despite, for a lot of people, the build not being what we wanted of it, the match was what made it worth it,
How incredible was that video package, Jack, that it completely ignored the last 8 weeks of TV?
Yeah, I know. The video package itself made it seem like the build-up we wanted in comparison to the build-up we had.
And so you know how to tell a story, you blankety blanks. Why didn't you? There's no Reginald in that video package. There's no mention of their challenging for the tag team titles for no reason. Mm-hmm. No, this is about, I'm the boss. I paved the way. And Bianca's like, hey, what the greatest line I heard on it was, you may have paved the road, but I'm in my own lane. That was good. That's so good, Jack.
Yeah, and overall, just an amazing match. And the two of them really had chemistry together.
I just told you CBS Sports gave an A grading to the Bad Bunny match. They gave this one an A+. Agreeing with the both of us that it, was the best match of the night as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and similar to a lot of matches, there was just a build-up to that final finish. And, whenever Sasha kept kicking out, moves from Bianca, I told my dad, it's not over till she hits that KOD. I'm like, once she hits that KOD, I don't even think down in NXT it's been kicked out of. I don't think it's been kicked out of on Raw. I don't think it's been kicked out of whenever she transferred to SmackDown. I was like, if she hits it, it's over. And if Sasha kicks out of it, then that's how we know she most likely isn't winning unless she hits a second one.
Agreed.
But, so it was all that build-up, at least on the side of Bianca, to hitting the KOD. And they kind of built it up for Sasha getting the bank statement locked in on her.
CM Punk took questions from fans, I think on Twitch maybe, and they said, what's one thing you'd get rid of in wrestling? And he says, that shocked face when a move that's never beaten anybody doesn't beat somebody. And I 100% agree with him. So, you think when Bianca Belair got all emotional after a 450 didn't put away Sasha Banks. Yeah. But I'm 100% on what he's agrees with what he says, except for Bianca and this match, because she was so emotionally invested and emotional about the whole thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? I half expected her to just start crying at any point. And shout out to Sasha Banks, the consummate professional who kept her cool so much.
Yeah. And, it was just really great from both. It's matches like these, the match that she had against Bayley, her match against Becky at Hell in a Cell from 2019, that while I don't enjoy the Horsewomen as much, when it comes to out of the four of them, I think I enjoy Sasha the most just because she gets you heavily invested in storylines, matches. She has all the cadences and work down, which is why I enjoy her the most.
How many minutes we got, Jack?
4.
4. I'll just say this. The hosts of WrestleMania on night 2 are going to be talking about this match and about these competitors, bigging them up a day later, and Bayley's going to interrupt their conversation and take issue with all the attention they're getting. So, how exciting is it, after this really great match, that Bayley's probably going to get involved with either of these women or both of these women?
Yeah. And so, we got to finish off about the closing moment.
Please.
The hair whip.
So they start off with a tug of war. Bianca Belair's got this braid of hair that goes almost down to her feet, and they're doing a bit of tug of war. Sasha's used it to get leverage over Bianca Belair, but Bianca pulls it back. Sasha goes for something, a clothesline, and what happens, Jack?
Bianca, still holding on to her hair, goes and whips Sasha on Sasha's side, abdomen area, and you just hear the loudest noise echo throughout the arena. Despite it being an open arena, you hear it echo. And later, once the match is finished, we see it left a huge gash along her side and was even bleeding a little bit, which just showed how hard she got hit.
Sasha is the perfect fair skin to show immediate impact of a strike like that. She's got this giant red line on her side. I'm excited, Jack, when we see the 24 special about this match, when we realize that 1, Sasha bladed, and 2, somebody in the back had a kendo stick and hit something with a microphone on them to make that snap happen, because that crack was so good.
Yeah, It reminded me of the times of Lucha Underground where you swear someone, as my dad was, and you swear someone just had a board and was smacking it down every time someone did a kick because it would sound like there was a gunshot.
Right.
And that's similar
so
to this.
Good. And from there, Bianca hits her KOD and gets the 2, 3.
Yeah, and I love that closing sequence where they're just tying up the reversing, and then out of nowhere, that's when she finally gets her up, and she doesn't pose, she doesn't truly show off the build of this match, and truly show how much they care. She doesn't care about the theatrics of it all. She just, as soon as she gets her in that position, she immediately hits her with it to get the 1, 2, 3 and win.
Real good, Jack. A really great night of wrestling. Yeah. And we've still got one more.
Yeah, and I'll just finish it with this. It just made me so happy because we know when we watch these guys come up from NXT, more often than not we have a lot of worry when they get called up. Where here it was just so happy to see her grow from all this time building and perfecting her character, even when she debuted, still working on perfecting it to get to this moment.
Can you imagine, Jack, a year ago, you and I were talking about WrestleMania, where her only involvement in WrestleMania was to come out and celebrate with the Street Profits, even up the score between her and the Zelina Vega's boys, right? Mm-hmm. A year later, main eventing and winning the top prize in her division.
Yeah, amazing to see.
Goodness gracious.
And similarly, on night 2, something similar may have also occurred. But we'll close off here. This has been night 1 of WrestleMania, our review. We thank you guys for joining us. Tune into the next episode where we discuss WrestleMania night 2 and give our opinion. Thank you. See you in the next episode.